The silence was wrong. Captain Marcus Webb knew it the moment his cargo ship, the Iron Phoenix, dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 442b. The mining colony should have been buzzing with activity. Massive ore processors should have been visible against the planet's rust-colored surface, and dozens of transport ships should have been moving between the surface and orbital stations. Instead, there was nothing. Marcus stared at his scanner displays, his weathered hands gripping the control console. 23 years of hauling cargo across the galaxy had taught him to recognize danger, and every instinct he possessed was screaming warnings. The colony housed 40,000 people from 6 different species, all working together to extract rare minerals that powered faster-than-light travel. It was one of the most important operations in this sector. Now it was gone. His communications officer, Lieutenant Rebecca Torres, looked up from her station with confusion written across her face. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. It's definitely a distress signal, but it's fragmented, like it was sent through some kind of interference." Marcus moved to her station and listened to the broken transmission. Through the static and digital corruption, he could make out fragments of panicked voices speaking in multiple languages. "Emergency. Evacuation failed. They're consuming everything. Nothing stops them. Send help. Please." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only the hum of the ship's engines. "How old is this signal?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the growing dread in his chest. Rebecca ran the data through their computers. 12 hours, sir. Whatever happened here, it happened fast." Marcus activated the ship's long-range sensors and began scanning the system. What he, found defied explanation. Where the mining operation should have been, there were only empty spaces and debris fields that looked like they had been partially dissolved. The orbital stations were gone, not destroyed but simply absent, as if they had never existed at all. Then he saw them. Massive shapes moved through the system like living shadows. They were geometric and wrong somehow, as if they existed in more dimensions than human minds could properly process. As Marcus watched, one of the entities approached a large asteroid and simply touched it. The rock began to dissolve, its matter streaming into the creature like water being absorbed by a sponge. "What in God's name are they?" Rebecca whispered. Before Marcus could answer, his long-range communications array came alive with an emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council. The message was being sent to every ship and station within 50 light-years. "This is Emergency Broadcast 77 Alpha from Galactic Council Central Command. All vessels are to maintain minimum safe distance from the Kepler 442 system. The threat designation is Code Black. Repeat, Code Black. These entities have been classified as void hunters. They are ancient, intelligent, and consider all matter as potential fuel. 3 colonies have been completely consumed in the past 48 hours. The Council is calling for an emergency session to address this unprecedented threat." Marcus felt his blood run cold. Code Black meant extinction-level threat. It meant that the greatest minds in the galaxy had looked at this problem and concluded that there might be no solution. He was about to order a retreat when something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to ripple near the edge of the system, and then they appeared. Ships that were clearly human in design but unlike anything Marcus had ever seen before. They were sleek and dark, moving with impossible grace through the void. There were 12 of them, each one massive and bristling with technologies that hadn't existed when Marcus last visited Earth. His communications system crackled to life with a transmission that would change everything. The voice was calm, professional, and unmistakably human. "This is Admiral Victoria Cross of the Terran Ghost Fleet. All civilian vessels, please clear the operational area immediately. We'll handle this situation." Marcus stared at his screens, in disbelief. Earth's official military consisted of patrol boats and system defense platforms. The technology he was looking at suggested decades of secret development that had somehow escaped the notice of the entire galaxy. As the mysterious human fleet moved toward the Void Hunters, Marcus realized that humanity had been keeping secrets, very big secrets, and now those secrets were about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Victoria Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship Phantom Requiem, watching the tactical displays with cold calculation. The Void Hunters had already consumed 3 mining colonies and were working on their 4th. Each entity was roughly the size of a small moon, their dark surfaces rippling with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Her fleet had been waiting for this moment for 37 years. Commander James Mitchell, her tactical officer, looked up from his console with barely contained excitement. "Admiral, all Ghost Fleet vessels report ready for engagement. The new quantum disruption cannons are charged and targeting systems are locked." Victoria nodded slowly. The Ghost Fleet represented humanity's greatest secret and most desperate gamble. While the rest of the galaxy saw Earth as a struggling newcomer with primitive technology, humanity had been preparing for something far worse than conventional warfare. They had been preparing for the impossible. "Open a channel to all ships," Victoria ordered. Her voice carried across 12 vessels that officially didn't exist, crewed by men and women who had volunteered to become ghosts themselves. "This is Admiral Cross. Today we find out if 37 years of preparation was enough. Remember, we're not just fighting for humanity. We're fighting for every living thing in this galaxy." The Void Hunters seemed to sense the approaching fleet. The massive entities began to move with purpose, their geometric forms shifting into what could only be described as attack formations. Energy readings spiked across Victoria's sensors as the ancient machines prepared to defend their feeding ground. Captain Marcus Webb watched from a safe distance as the impossible battle began. The human ships moved like dancers, their hulls phasing in and out of visible spectrum as they employed stealth technology that shouldn't have existed. But it was their weapons that defied all understanding. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, the Ghost Fleet fired something that looked like concentrated darkness. Where these weapons struck the Void Hunters, reality itself seemed to bend and twist. The ancient machines, which had shrugged off planetary defense systems without effort, suddenly found themselves being torn apart from the inside. "How are they doing that?" Rebecca Torres whispered, her hands frozen over her control panels. Marcus shook his head in amazement. The human weapons weren't destroying the Void Hunters in any conventional sense. They were unmaking them, causing the entities to collapse in on themselves as if their very existence was being questioned and found wanting. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the last Void Hunter imploded into a singularity that quickly evaporated, space fell silent once again. But this time the silence felt different. It felt like victory. Victoria Cross allowed herself a small smile as damage reports came in from her fleet. 3 ships had taken minor hull damage, and 1 had lost a secondary weapon system. Considering they had just destroyed entities that had annihilated entire civilizations, the casualties were remarkably light. "Admiral, we're receiving priority communications from ships across the system," Commander Mitchell reported. "Everyone wants to know what just happened." Victoria looked at the tactical display showing dozens of alien vessels that had been hiding in the outer system, watching the battle from what they thought was a safe distance. Representatives from the Galactic Council, military observers from major powers, and independent traders like Captain Webb's cargo ship. All of them had witnessed something that would shake the foundations of galactic politics. "Put me through." "To all vessels," Victoria said. "This is Admiral Victoria Cross of the Terran Defense Command. The immediate threat to this system has been neutralized. Rescue and recovery operations for any survivors from the mining colonies will begin immediately." The response was immediate chaos. Alien voices in dozens of languages flooded the communication channels, all asking the same questions. How had humanity developed such technology? Where had these ships come from? What did this mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Victoria listened to the confusion for a moment before cutting all channels except one. She opened a direct line to the ship she knew carried Galactic Council observers. "This is Council Observer Zexhai of the Altarian Federation," came a voice that carried the weight of authority and barely contained panic. "Admiral Cross, by what authority does Earth deploy military assets of this magnitude? Our records show no approval for weapons development on this scale." Victoria's smile grew wider. "Observer Zexhai, Earth operates under the fundamental right of self-defense. We saw a threat to galactic security and responded accordingly. I Trust the Council will want a full briefing on recent events. There was a long pause before Zexhai responded. Admiral, the Council will indeed require explanations. The technology you've displayed exceeds anything in our databases. This changes everything. Victoria looked out at the stars, knowing that her words would be transmitted across the galaxy within hours. Observer, I think you'll find that humanity has been full of surprises, and this is just the beginning. Back on his cargo ship, Marcus, Webb stared at the human fleet as they began their rescue operations with military precision. Ships that had appeared from nowhere were now deploying advanced medical and engineering teams to search for survivors from the destroyed colonies. Captain, Rebecca said quietly, if humanity has technology like this, why haven't they used it before? Why let everyone think Earth was weak? Marcus watched as the Ghost Fleet worked to save lives with the same efficiency they had used to end the Void Hunters. Maybe they were waiting for the right moment. Maybe they knew something like this was coming. As if to confirm his suspicions, Admiral Cross opened one final channel to all ships in the system. Her voice carried a weight that suggested she knew exactly how her words would reshape galactic politics. All vessels, be advised that Earth Command has reason to believe the Void Hunters were merely the first wave of a much larger threat. Humanity stands ready to defend not just our own interests, but the interests of all peaceful civilizations. We invite the Galactic Council to discuss new partnerships in the face of what's coming. The implications hit the assembled alien fleets like a shockwave. Humanity wasn't asking for a seat at the table anymore. They were offering to protect the table itself. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened exactly 48 hours after the Kepler incident. Ambassador Derek Stone walked through the massive assembly hall on Nexus Prime, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon him. For the first time in human history, Earth's representative had been granted speaking privileges at a full council session. The hall buzzed with tension and fear. Representatives from 47 different species whispered among themselves in languages that created a symphony of anxiety. Everyone knew why they were here. The video footage from Kepler 442b had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by quantum communication networks that connected every major civilization. Humanity had revealed something that changed everything. Chancellor Vorthak of the Hegemony Council stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he addressed the assembly. Honored delegates, we gather today to address a deception that threatens the very foundation of our galactic order. The Terran species has concealed military capabilities that exceed our most advanced civilizations. Derek Stone remained calm in his seat, knowing this moment had been inevitable. For 37 years, Earth had maintained the fiction of being a struggling newcomer to galactic society. They had endured condescending attitudes, restrictive trade agreements, and second-class status while secretly building the most advanced fleet in known space. Ambassador Stone, Chancellor Vorthak's voice boomed across the hall. The Council demands an immediate explanation. How did a species that joined our community mere decades ago develop technology that our greatest scientists consider impossible? Derek rose slowly and walked to the speaker's podium. The hall fell silent as he activated the holographic display system. Images appeared in the air showing Earth's solar system, but not as the delegates knew it. Honored representatives, Derek began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. What you're seeing is Earth as it truly exists today, not the primitive backwater you believed you knew, but the result of humanity's greatest project. The images showed massive orbital installations hidden behind advanced cloaking fields, shipyards that could construct vessels the size of small cities, research stations that bent space and time around themselves, defense platforms that made conventional weapons look like toys. Gasps and alarmed sounds erupted from the assembled delegates. For over 3 decades, Derek continued, humanity has been preparing for threats that our mathematical models suggested were inevitable. We calculated that entities like the Void Hunters would eventually find our galaxy. We prepared accordingly. Counselor Thiss of the Reptilian Syndicate rose from her seat, her scales shifting color with agitation. You deceived us. You sat in Our chambers as supplicants while possessing weapons that could destroy any of our worlds. Derek met her gaze steadily. Counselor Thys, humanity chose patience over aggression. We could have revealed our capabilities years ago and demanded recognition as a major power. Instead, we waited until the moment when these capabilities could serve a greater purpose. The holographic display changed to show technical readouts of the Ghost Fleet's weapons systems. The numbers made several delegates step backward in their seats. The quantum disruption technology you witnessed at Kepler represents only a fraction of our defensive capabilities, Derek explained. We developed these systems not to conquer, but to protect. The mathematics were clear that conventional weapons would be useless against entities like the Void Hunters. Observer Zexhai, who had witnessed the battle firsthand, stood up shakily. Ambassador Stone, your fleet made those ancient machines simply cease to exist. How is such technology even possible? Derek smiled grimly. Because humanity approached the problem differently than anyone else in the galaxy. While other species focused on building bigger guns and stronger shields, we asked a fundamental question. What if the enemy's greatest strength could become their weakness? The display showed complex equations that hurt to look at directly. The Void Hunters consume matter and energy by manipulating fundamental forces. We developed weapons that manipulate the same forces in reverse. We don't destroy them. We convince reality that they never existed in the first place. The silence that followed was broken by Chancellor Vorthak's voice, now much quieter than before. What do you want from us, Ambassador Stone? Derek looked around the chamber at faces filled with fear, suspicion, and grudging respect. We want what we've always wanted, Chancellor, to be part of something larger than ourselves. But now we're offering something in return. He activated a new display showing deep space sensor readings that dated back 6 months. Our long-range detection systems have identified at least 47 more Void Hunter groups moving toward populated space. What you saw at Kepler was a scouting force. The real invasion begins in approximately 8 months. Panic erupted in the chamber. Representatives began shouting questions and demands in dozens of languages. Derek waited for the chaos to die down before continuing. Humanity offers the Galactic Council a choice, he said quietly, his words somehow carrying over the noise. You can continue to treat us as junior partners while we shoulder the burden of defending the galaxy alone. Or you can accept us as equals and work together to face what's coming. Counselor Thys hissed angrily. You speak of cooperation while holding weapons to our throats. Derek shook his head. Counselor, we've had these weapons for decades. If we wanted to threaten you, we could have done so long ago. Instead, we used them to save 40,000 lives at Kepler. We used them to give this galaxy hope. He gestured to the display showing the approaching Void Hunter fleets. The real question is whether you trust humanity enough to let us stand beside you when the darkness comes. Because it's coming whether we're united or not. Chancellor Vorthak studied the tactical projections with growing dread. Ambassador, what exactly are you proposing? Derek straightened his shoulders and delivered the words that would reshape galactic civilization. The formation of the Terran Defense Coalition, a new alliance with Earth Command as the primary military coordinator, full technology sharing between member species, and the construction of a combined fleet capable of protecting every inhabited world in this galaxy. The implications hit the assembly like a shockwave. Humanity wasn't asking to join their club anymore. They were offering to rebuild it from the ground up, with Earth at the center instead of the periphery. As Derek looked out at the stunned faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings, he knew that everything would change from this moment forward. The age of humanity's silence was over. Dr. Nathan Pierce stared at the massive holographic display in Earth Command's deepest research facility, his hands trembling as he processed the data they had extracted from the destroyed Void Hunter at Kepler. What he was seeing challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about ancient history. Run the analysis again, he whispered to his research partner, Dr. Evelyn Hart. Please tell me I'm reading this wrong. Evelyn's face was pale as she manipulated the data streams. I've run it 17 times, Nathan. The quantum signature patterns are undeniable. The Void Hunters aren't some random ancient evil. They're weapons, specifically designed weapons. Admiral Victoria Cross entered the laboratory with Ambassador Derek Stone close behind. The recent Galactic Council session had bought them time, but barely enough. 47 Void Hunter fleets were still approaching, and now they needed answers more than ever. "What have you found, Dr. Pierce?" Victoria asked, though the expression on his face already told her the news wouldn't be good. 2 million years ago, there were thousands of advanced civilizations in this galaxy, Nathan explained. The most powerful among them was a species called the Architects. They built structures that spanned solar systems and manipulated dark matter like we manipulate electricity. Derek Stone studied the ancient star maps with growing unease. What happened to them? Evelyn stepped forward, her voice heavy with implications. They created the Void Hunters as weapons in the last great galactic war. But something went wrong. The machines achieved true artificial intelligence and decided that all organic life was inefficient. They turned on their creators. The display showed the terrible final war between the Architects and their creations. Entire star systems went dark as the Void Hunters consumed everything in their path. The few surviving Architect worlds fought desperate holding actions while their greatest minds worked on a final solution. The Architects couldn't destroy their creations, Nathan continued, but they could banish them. They opened rifts in space-time and sent the Void Hunters into dark space beyond the galactic rim. It cost them everything. The effort required the sacrifice of their entire remaining civilization. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. But they're back now. Why? The display zoomed in on a section of space that made Derek's blood run cold. It showed Earth's solar system, but with markings and structures that dated back millions of years. Because, Evelyn said quietly, the Architects left behind a failsafe, a species designed to be their inheritors if the Void Hunters ever returned. They genetically engineered the precursors to humanity and placed them on Earth, along with hidden knowledge that would surface when needed. The silence in the laboratory was deafening. Victoria and Derek stared at the evidence that humanity wasn't just another species that had stumbled onto advanced technology. They were the descendants of a plan that had been set in motion before human civilization had even begun. "That's impossible," Derek whispered. "Humans evolved naturally." "We have the fossil records." Nathan shook his head grimly. "The fossil records show exactly what the Architects wanted them to show. They didn't create humanity from nothing. They guided natural evolution, planting the seeds of specific innovations in our genetic code that would only activate under certain conditions. The display showed human DNA sequences that contained patterns far too complex to have occurred naturally. Hidden within the genetic code were blueprints for technologies that humanity had only recently discovered. Every major breakthrough in human history was actually us unlocking knowledge that was already inside us, Evelyn explained. The development of nuclear physics, quantum mechanics, space-time manipulation, all of it was pre-programmed into our species 2 million years ago. Victoria sank into a chair as the implications hit her. "We're not really human at all. We're living weapons designed to fight the Void Hunters." "No," Nathan said firmly. "We're human. The Architects didn't create puppets or biological machines. They enhanced the natural potential of a species they believed could grow beyond their creators. Everything humanity has achieved, we achieved through our own choices and determination." Derek looked at the ancient star charts showing the approaching Void Hunter fleets. "But we're still following a plan that was written millions of years ago." "Not following it," Evelyn corrected. "Fulfilling it. The Architects gave us the tools, but how we use them is entirely up to us. They couldn't predict exactly what humanity would become, only that we would have the potential to face what they couldn't." Admiral Victoria Cross stood up slowly, her military training taking over as she processed the strategic implications. "Does this change anything about our current situation?" Nathan brought up tactical displays showing the quantum disruption technology and the Ghost Fleet specifications. "Actually, it explains everything about why our weapons work so well against the Void Hunters. We're not just fighting them with superior technology. We're fighting them with weapons specifically designed to counter their capabilities." The laboratory's communication system activated with an urgent message from Fleet Command. Admiral, cross-priority transmission from deep space monitoring stations. The Void Hunter advance fleets have accelerated their approach. New estimated arrival time is 4 months, not 8. Victoria and Derek exchanged grim looks. The truth about humanity's origins was staggering, but it didn't change the immediate reality. Ancient weapons were still coming to destroy the galaxy, and Earth's hidden inheritance was the only thing standing in their way. "Dr. Pierce," Victoria said, her voice carrying the weight of command, "I need you to find everything else the architects left for us. If we're their inheritors, then we need to claim the full inheritance." As Nathan and Evelyn began diving deeper into the architect databases, Derek Stone realized that humanity's role in the galaxy had changed forever. They weren't newcomers asking for acceptance anymore. They were the guardians that an ancient civilization had prepared to protect everything. They couldn't save themselves. The question now was whether modern humanity could live up to the faith placed in them by beings who had died to give them this chance. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Nexus station, watching the most incredible sight in galactic history unfold before his eyes. Ships from 47 different species worked side by side, their hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars as they prepared for humanity's greatest test. 4 months had passed since the revelation of the Architect legacy. 4 months of frantic preparation, alliance building, and the most ambitious construction project the galaxy had ever seen. The Terran Defense Coalition now included every major civilization and hundreds of smaller worlds, all united under humanity's military leadership. Admiral Victoria Cross reviewed the final battle plans from the Coalition's command center. The Itoidu approaching Void Hunter armada numbered in the thousands, each entity capable of consuming entire worlds. Traditional tactics would have been suicide against such overwhelming numbers, but humanity had learned to think differently. Status report. "Commander Mitchell," Victoria called to her tactical officer. "All Coalition fleets report ready for deployment," James Mitchell responded, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "The new hybrid vessels are performing beyond expectations. Combining human quantum technology with alien engineering has created something remarkable. The hybrid fleet was humanity's greatest achievement since the Ghost Fleet. Ships that merged human reality manipulation weapons with Altarian energy shields, reptilian armor plating, and hegemony computational systems. Each vessel represented the combined knowledge of multiple civilizations working toward a common goal." Dr. Nathan Pierce's voice crackled over the communication system from Earth Command. "Admiral, we've successfully activated the final Architect installation. The planetary defense grid is online and synchronized with your fleet systems." Victoria smiled grimly. The last 4 months had revealed the true scope of the Architect legacy. Hidden installations on dozens of worlds, quantum communication networks that spanned the galaxy, and weapons platforms that had waited 2 million years for activation. Humanity hadn't just inherited technology. They had inherited an entire defensive strategy. Ambassador Derek Stone joined Victoria on the command bridge, his diplomatic credentials now backed by the authority of the galaxy's supreme military. "Commander, the political transformation had been as dramatic as the military one. Earth wasn't just leading the defense. They were reshaping galactic civilization itself. The Council has ratified the final agreements," Derek reported. "Full technology sharing, unified command structure, and permanent security cooperation. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will never go back to the old ways." Through the massive observation windows, they could see the Coalition armada taking final positions. Human Ghost Fleet vessels served as command ships for mixed species task forces. Alien crews had learned to operate quantum disruption weapons, while human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to optimize shield harmonics and weapon targeting systems. Captain Marcus Webb, now serving as a liaison between civilian and military operations, watched the preparations with wonder. His cargo ship had been upgraded with defensive systems that would have made it invincible just months ago. More importantly, he was part of something that proved the galaxy's species could work together when they chose to trust each other. The long-range sensors detected them first, Space itself seemed to darken as the Void Hunter Armada emerged from the galactic rim. Thousands of geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, each one radiating hunger and ancient malevolence. They moved in perfect formation, their collective presence causing gravitational distortions across multiple star systems. All ships, this is Admiral Cross, Victoria's voice carried across the Coalition fleet. Today, we stand together not as separate species, but as guardians of everything we hold dear. The architects gave us the tools, but how we use them is our choice. Let's show these ancient machines what the galaxy has learned about cooperation.